We're going to talk about the boxing stance, the balanced boxing stance, something that's very important and underrated. You know, if you don't have a good balanced stance where you can transfer your weight, it's hard to be a good boxer. You might can box, you might can fight, you might can scrap, you might even get wins. But if your balanced stance is not there, sooner or later it's going to catch up to you. And in order to be a good or a great boxer, you have to have a balanced stance. Because everything else you do, it comes off of that. No balanced stance, then no balanced defense, no balanced offense. It's a whole lot that goes into the stance, but it's very important. And I like to explain to my young guys that you get shoulder width. You get shoulder width a little bit outside of your shoulders with the knees. Shoulder here, the knee, and the foot are just a little bit outside, so you get the balance. If you're too square, too tight inside here, if your feet are inside your shoulders, now you don't have the balance. You want to get right there. Just like you see any well-balanced driving cars. There's a lot of width. It's not narrow. It's not too wide, but it's not narrow neither. That's why I go outside the shoulders. And placement, your foot placement. 1 o'clock, if you orthodox, you know, right, not facing forward. This locks your knee. Not here, here. If you southpaw, obviously, that lead foot. So outside the shoulder, bent, facing. I have my young guys do this, like they're on a horse, facing this way. You don't want that knee turned and locked, because now you can't maneuver, and this is not balanced because you can't transfer. With it being here, you can transfer. You need to have even distribution. You want to have the back foot, heel to toe. You don't want to have it behind here because now you lose your balance. This is in the balance right here, the balance in the transfer. Your weight centered and distributed evenly. Not too tight because now you can't distribute it evenly. Here, a right triangle. Heel toe. Lead foot, back foot. Balance, knee bend. Being able to transfer the weight in the back to the front. In the back to the front. In the back to the front. You want to be able to transfer the weight. That's nice and balanced now. Now I'm balanced. I don't want to be leaning too far here. You want to be leaning more back. Then you can go up front. You don't want to be up here and then trying to come back here. You want to be here. That's balance right there. See that stance? Now you want to talk about hand placement. So that elbow over the knee. Facing that way. Over the knee. The back elbow, splitting the crotch, straight down. Centering yourself. This elbow helps center you. With this elbow here, it helps center your body. So now you can transfer the weight. You don't want to have this in here. You want to have it in there and center the weight. See that? Now I can transfer the weight and I can center it. I'm centering it right there. Boom. Straight down. I can transfer it to the front, to the back. I can center it. Similar to all the other sports. You want to center your weight. Then you don't want to have your shoulders leaning here or here. You want to have a nice tilt. See that? You want to have a nice tilt on your shoulder. You don't want to be here. Here. Elbows. Look at that. Knees. I check my stance like that. If it was behind here, it won't be balanced. Got to have a balanced stance. You can check it like that. Bam. You see guys with the hand up too high, the elbow out, You want to have it centered in here and tucked. Tucked. See the lead hand too tucked in it. This leads to imbalance too. With the arms, you balance yourself with the arms too. You don't just balance yourself with the legs. You balance the whole stance, the whole body. And if your arms are out of balance, then it'll make your legs be out of balance. And then you won't have a balanced stance because your arms are too outside of the balance. It's science. You can't defeat it. You can't get outside of it. The further you are outside of the balance, the more mistakes you're prone to happen. The hips. You want to be able to turn those hips. That's why if you have your foot facing forward, you can't turn the hips now. You can't, you're locked in. This knee is locked. Here, the hips is in play now. Bam. See that? Turn the hip. That's why you need a balanced weight stance, a balanced stance, so you can transfer the weight. Transfer the weight. So I'm taking away from here, transferring it through. Boom. Pow. See that? If you don't have the stance balance, it's hard to transfer. That's why you see some guys hit hard on call. It's their stance. It's their stance is so balanced. Bow. You'll see the guys. You'll see a lot of the great guys. They can just wham. The new guys, the older guys, same thing. You want to be able to transfer the weight. Now the weight's here. Now I'm transferring it. Dry. Boom. Pushing it through the hips. Same thing with the back foot. Weight's here. Pushing it. Coming through the hips. But if your balanced stance is not there, if you're too narrow or too wide, you can't transfer. If you're too wide, you can't transfer the weight. You can't transfer the weight if you're too wide. If you're too narrow, you can't transfer the weight. You see guys with the nice, tight, narrow stances, they can't transfer the weight. They don't have pop when they punch. But when you see that balanced stance, if you look at any of the top 10 guys, top 20 guys, whatever, the champions, a lot of them have balanced stances. And that's the key. That's the key right there, so you can transfer the weight. Boom. Without that balanced stance, you can't transfer the weight. Even if you keep both feet down, I can still transfer the weight with the foot all the way to the ground. If it's light on the ground, I can still transfer the weight. It's hips and knees. You see a lot of guys with the knees not bent. And so they're always up here, and they always up here. They don't get no bend, so they can't transfer the weight without the bend. You need to be able to get the bend and then come back. You can't just be up here. It's the same thing as a car. When you drop the clutch on the car sink. Fast cars, they sink when you hit that third, fourth gear. And that's the same thing. You're generating power. But if you don't have a balanced stance, all that's out the window. You won't be able to do it. It's just that simple. You won't be able to transfer power, shots. You won't be able to transfer from offense to defense. So for instance, I throw a shot without good balanced stance, I can't go into a weave now. But with a good balanced stance, I can. Because I'm transferring, even the weave, I'm transferring the weight from front to back. Even a slip, I'm transferring the weight. Without balance, I slip. I don't get it over. I don't bend. I don't use the hips. I don't. Weight transfer from here to the back. To the front. Weight transfer. You got to have a stance to do that. So you need all of that. You need to have a stance to be able to be a good boxer. Defensive, offensively, mobility, all of that. Exit. If you want to get out of harm's way, you need a good stance to move back. And when you take steps, you got to complete your stance. So if you take 5-inch step, you need to take a 5-inch step with the back so you can keep your balanced stance. You know, this is a simple drill that every beginner should be doing right here, just getting used to being in the balanced stance. Then, like I said, check your stance. So you offset. You want to be offset. You don't want this behind you. You want to be offset. Toe, heel. Surfboard. See that? Surfboard, like I'm riding a surfboard. Nice and balanced. Like I'm putting the golf. See that? Nice and balanced. You gotta have a balanced stance. I want to go to defense. Balance. Roll. Weave out. Balance. Slip out. Weave in. Balance. Transfer everything through the hips. Through all of these motions on these different accesses. You know, when you go to slip out, I take the balance, I take the weight and transfer it on that access with the shoulders. I go to slip in, I transfer the weight back to the back on that access with the shoulders. That's why the stance is important. If you don't have the stance, you can't do you can't use your attributes, you can't do this, you can't put together the skills, because you got to put them all together. They can't just have the one at a time. So you have to be able to have the transfers and weight, and the stance has to be right to have that. You got to have the knees bend. You got to be able to bend. You can't be stiff. You got to get used to here. This is a drill I have all my fighters do. I just get them knees and them hips used to flexing up and down and over. Getting used to these patterns. Then I add in the weaves, the rolls. Roll in, weave out. Getting their hips used to doing that from the balanced stance. Then I get them up on their toes and used to doing it. But first I start with their feet on the ground, focus on the hips. Then I get them on their toes and able to do it. The weight is still transferring. The weight is all from here, but you got to get the bottom first. You got to get that settled up first. Not here, not here, not shoulders open. Here, balance. Just like a baseball player. A balanced stance. See that shoulder tilt? Now I can transfer the weight. Boom! And I can bring it right back. Transfer the defensive weight. Then I can go right back to offense. Boom! Because the stance is balanced. Weave out. Weave in. Transfer the weight. See that? Transfer the weight. Transfer the weight on that jab. Because everything is balanced. You got to have a balanced stance.